Welcome to FDA's Quality Breakdown. I'm your host, Devon Edwards. Welcome back to another edition of FDA's Quality Breakdown. I come with good news. Apparently, you guys are much smarter than other podcast viewers. True. According to this totally fictional study, watching Quality Breakdown increases your intelligence by 20 points. Right here. One thing that I've noticed about our industry is the common perception of how well their FDA inspection concluded based solely on the number of 483 items. All 483s are not created equal. All 483s are not created equal. Now you say it with me. All 483s are not created equal. Theoretically, you can receive 10 483 observations and be in a better compliance status than one of these showstoppers. So I put together a list of the top 5 observations that I've seen that are inspection killers. Sadly, these are observations that are far more common than you would expect. So let's get to it. Number 5, no process or analytical validation. Many definitions, but it's basically confidence demonstrated by repetition. You state what's going to happen, that's your validation protocol, perform the process or method, and document that the outcome is exactly what you predicted. Typically, you do this 3 times. Before you go commercial, this demonstration has to be done. Now, I've seen multiple incidents of companies knowing their process is flawed, yet going through a pre-approval inspection prior to completing their validation. Now, since FDA can hypothetically approve you prior to you completing your validation, you still have to complete that before you ship into commercial channels. Just because the FDA left, you got your approval letter, you can't just ship that product out there with no validation. Number 4, foreign material in the drug product or drug substance. Now, come on, how many times have you seen warning letters that says black specks in the drug product? Come on. I always laugh when I see an investigation that sort of guess at what this material or these black specks are. Material was subjected to heat and charred. A lot of times that's just nonsense. You can typically isolate the particles, form a mass spec, and you'll know what it is, rather than guessing at it. But I assume that a lot of times people don't want to know because it's going to open up a whole can of worms. They'd rather put down a list of probabilities than actually recognize what it is, because if they did identify what it is, it could be a monster that raises suspicion on all the batches out there in the market. But I think the FDA has seen this before. So I would suggest figuring out what it is. Number 3, product release without a spec results. Once you have an approved application to market drug products, that product has a list of specifications and you have to meet them. Whether we're talking about the assay, the impurities, the pH, water content, you have specifications that you have to meet. Now, in my time as an FDA investigator, I saw a lot of excuses why products were released, even though they didn't meet the specifications. Sure, they were just marginally outside of the limits, but they still did not meet the specs. Now, my favorite excuse was analyst error. I love that one. Now, it's fine if you have the evidence to show that this is actually what happened, but that cannot be the arbitrary go-to cause and you release the product. Now, if the FDA finds out that you knowingly released a product that failed specification, you're setting yourself up for a potential warning letter, maybe even a product seizure. 483 is just the start. So you can see that this one 483 item can lead to a much more serious outcome. So if this was the only 483 observation that you received, then the outcome is probably going to be a lot worse than lack of a second signature on a batch record. Number 2, stability failures, no recall. I've seen companies release products that are already teetering on the edge of failure when they release the product, right out the gate. Place that thing on stability for 2 years, you have a very good chance of it failing at least one of its specs before its expiry. Now, if you want to take that risk, okay, but when you get a confirmed stability failure, you have to get that batch off the market. You need to find out what other batches are impacted and get those off the market too. Smart thing to do is trend analysis, then optimize your process. All of these have ways that you can get around having these problems in the first place. Prevention is far better and less expensive than recalling. You know the FDA will be all over you once you start recalling. And number one, fake data, trashing the data. Now, this is one I can't believe happened even once, let alone several times. Seen it in several warning letters. The investigator comes in and finds torn up original data in the trash can. I know I read one where the investigator came in and the lab analysts were hauling the trash out with all of the original data in the trash can. Guys, if your data can't be trusted, then the FDA can't trust you. And more than likely, that 483 is going to dovetail into a warning letter and a lot worse. So there you have it, guys. Those are the top 5 that I've seen over my years. If you need any compliance assistance, FDA is here to help. If you would like regulatory consultation, this includes GMP training, 483 remediation, mock FDA inspections, certification training, and much more. Contact FDA.org. If you would like to contribute to the development of this podcast, donations are accepted through Cash App at $Enterprise Endeavor. I always recommend having a professional consultant help navigate you through the regulatory channels. There are many qualified consultants, and I always place former FDA field investigators at the top of that list. But if you cannot get a former FDA investigator, FDA has created audit tools that are like nothing else out there. These tools are in the form of ebooks, but they were created with the input of former FDA investigators. Each ebook not only tells your auditor what to review, tells them how to go about performing that review, and common problems that the FDA finds. Nowhere will you find this type of assistance. These audit tools are specific to clinical audits, oral solid dose, and APIs, the ultimate audit tools. All are available on Amazon. The Ultimate Clinical Audit Tool, the Ultimate Solid Dose Audit Tool, and the Ultimate API Audit Tool.